like you're saying, there's nothing more important than the franchise or franchisee relationship and that you're being heard as the franchisee, but we can't implement as the franchisor, we can't implement, nor should we implement everything everybody asks. And on the franchisor side, I always say one of the hardest parts of my business of growing my franchise brand was I felt like the hard challenge was doing what's right, not necessarily what's popular.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes leadership can be tough sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah. But at the same time, there is this natural pull. We talk about this. It's not an us versus them mentality in franchising that obviously is not beneficial to anybody. But there's something about a push-pull relationship that I always felt made our franchise brand stronger. We listen to them, they listen to us. We had sometimes opposing views on the how, but not on the why. So we were always rowing in the same direction, but maybe not always how we got there. And I think that in itself, when you're in franchising as a franchisor, like, well, me starting out and bootstrapping it, and I didn't have a lot of resources, my franchisees were far, far superior than I could have ever afforded as an employee if I opened company and locations. I think that's another benefit in franchising. Not many people talk about. They talk about, speed to market and using other people's money to grow.
Well,
but the acumen, right?
Think about this, like during the scary COVID times. I mean, it was franchisees that were bringing their wives and kids in at Dunkin' Donuts to serve coffee and shoot out espressos because everyone was sick or didn't want to come in, or, staffing was tight. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're not going to typically get a general manager that had the same investment. Honestly, I would never be comfortable with a general manager bringing in their wife and their kids to come work. That opens up a can of a lot of other things that you don't want to have going on in your business. But the person that actually owns the location, it's their prerogative. And I had lots of well-to-do friends that were definitely making coffee during the pandemic because that's what needed to happen for the location to stay open.
You do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Right. What does it take to be a really successful multi-unit franchisee? If there was somebody who's like, I've never bought a franchise before at all, but I've come from a really illustrious career, made a lot of money, I understand management, and I want to diversify my assets. I want to go into multi-unit franchising. What are some of the most important aspects of it?
If you think about my tenure as a franchisee, I've been in fast food, I've been in sales and marketing, I've been in cosmetology salons, been in carpet cleaning, and I've been in medical spas. They're all different customers and they're all different employees. I have had success in all 5 of those brands because before I got into the brand, I did my research and I clearly understood who the ideal customer was and who the ideal employee for that customer was. And when you only know one of those two part of the equation, it could be a challenge, it could be scary, and your success rate may not be as where you need it to be. But when you understand those two things and you know what speaks to both of them, you're going to be successful because it goes back to it's a relationship game.
Right. I love that you have such a diverse group of franchises that have nothing to do with one another.
Yeah, nothing.
And it just speaks to that because all too often people get so excited about a specific brand because they like the idea of owning it, or I'd be proud to, be associated with this brand, and they like, a certain product because they're a customer of it. But what you're saying at the end of the day, it comes down to obviously the franchisor-franchisee relationship and knowing the customer, knowing who you need as the employee. And you mentioned you didn't talk anything about the actual product itself though.
At the end of the day, you just have to sell a superior product or a better value product or service than everyone else in your market. And if you do that, you're going to own the market share. I happen to be in almost every one of my businesses where it's almost, if not directly, a 1-to-1 ratio of an employee is clocked in doing a service and a customer is there getting and paying for the service, right? So if I have more employees, then I have more opportunity for more clients, right? So that's where I was getting in with, you got to make sure you got to have the right employees because it doesn't matter about the product. It's about how the customer feels about the value of the product or service they're getting. Mm-hmm. And I would even argue with Little Caesars, it's a $5 large hot and ready pizza back in the day. I was still selling a service. The service was you didn't have to call ahead. You didn't have to think. It was a good value. Just pull in, get it. You're the hero tonight for dinner, right? It was still a service. And so even though they were $5, if I made people wait 25 minutes for it, why would they come to me?
Right. That's the most important aspect of Little Caesars, right? That's how you sell it.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it always got back to service, not the product.
How many I think you said earlier about, you talk about district managers. How many district managers do you have across all your brands that you own?
So the Ideal Image medical spas are siloed into a different corporation, and we don't have anything to do with, I mean, there are employees, but that relationship is very much like how when you walk into like a Ritz-Carlton, someone owns the physical Ritz-Carlton, owns the license or the franchise for it, but either Ritz-Carlton corporate or a third-party management company is managing the employees in the facility. And so the medical spas, because I'm not a doctor and I have to partner with a doctor in every state to do that. So we have that kind of set up for there. But we have a general manager for our carpet cleaning because we've got the entire St. Louis DMA. It's a large area. We're the largest Oxi Fresh office in the nation for them. And then for the sport clips, I've got 4 district managers right now. And if I doubled the number of stores in sport clips, I'd have 4 more district managers. And that would mean that my brother would have to bring on 1 more person in the office.
What other brands excite you right now, or industries? I know you mentioned you guys have this affinity for food. You want to get it back into food, but overall, is there a industry or a sector right now that you and your brother think there's some great opportunity out there?
Well, I see stuff in food. I've got a lot of friends that are jumping into the pet business, right? So like Dogtopia is an example. I've got 3 or 4 good friends that don't know each other. They're all Dogtopia franchisees now. I think pet is an exciting thing. I think pets are, I think food is, here's the thing about food. I think you're going to need to find concepts that allow you to have cheaper rent than what's currently out there right now. So you may be going into a B location or a second generation restaurant, but what you're saving your rent, you can then offset that by not having to have such high prices on the food. Okay. And I think that sounds exciting to me. I think there's some concepts out there that have really figured that out. I learned this at the multi-unit conference last year on a panel. They were talking about how do you evaluate a new brand. And I had always looked at it with one metric, right? And most people don't even look at it this one, but I look at it as it's a time issue. So how quick do I make my investment back? And anything 36 months or less is great. I'm jumping on that. You get me over 36 months, I'm starting to look at it like, I'm missing opportunities here with my turn of my money, right? So for me, it's like, okay, maybe I'm back at 36. The other thing that is really interesting that I'm looking at now is, you need to take the system average, not the top 25, not the bottom 20, the system average sales, and what are the multiples going for right now if you want to exit it? And for me, it was made very clear, why would you get into a concept that when you sell it, you're selling it for less than what it costs to build?
Right.
And there's a lot of concepts out there that are like that. Even though you can make great money, do not get me wrong, you may own a location for 15 years and net millions of dollars in profit off of it. But at the end of the day, when you want to exit it, wouldn't it be nice to sell it for more than what you paid to open it, even though you made all that great money?
Yeah.
So that's just another variable that as I get older and a little bit more tenured in this, that's another component to the equation I'm looking at. What are the exit multiples?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most franchisees, especially newer franchisees going into the business, do not think about exit strategy and what I can get out of this on the way out, right?
No. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I can tell you, I didn't even read I don't even think it was an FTD. What was it before that?
UFOC, Uniform Franchise
UFOC,
Offering
yes.
Circular.
Yes. My first thing was one of those, and I didn't read it other than where they had the little tab for me to sign my name. I mean, I could have been signing my life away. I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to be a franchisee, come hell or high water. And I was convinced if other guys and girls were able to do it,
so can I. Yeah. Well, that goes back to, I don't care if you're in franchising or not franchising. The exit strategy discussion does not come up, very often because we're so excited about getting into business. And if you ever said to somebody getting into business, well, what's the exit strategy? They go, what exit strategy? I'm just getting into this. I'm going to do this for life. Most people, we don't do anything just, for life. But especially in franchising, because you have a franchising agreement that's in place and you need to understand what you can and what you can't do and what the franchisor can, if the franchisor has the first right of refusal, and your abilities to sell a franchise are critical decisions depending on, the brand that you're getting into, right?
Yeah. And when you have multiple brands, you really, you move from playing checkers to chess.
Yes.
And as an example, we were tickled pink with Little Caesars. We were making money on them. The only reason we sold them was there was an opportunity with the medical spas. And we're like, we can get a great multiple right now for this. Let's take that money and parlay it into these medical spas that have this other type of earning potential. So it was a chess piece. We just moved around the thing. So it's never that you dislike a brand. I've never gotten in or gotten out of a brand that I actually didn't like just as much when I was getting out of it that I liked when I got into it. So I've had a really positive experience with it, but they are chess pieces. And, thinking about your exit strategies is just as important as your entrance.
Basically, Jesse, what I'm hearing is you try to take the emotion out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's still an emotional play. It absolutely is. And I think part of the reason is my brother and I's interest to get back in food is like, we feel guilty about selling our Little Caesars, but I mean, we just kind of miss that type of here's what I can tell you. I really like working with cosmetologists. I like working with fast food workers. So many times you can come in and say something to them and you blow their mind with a new perspective on life. And that's more rewarding to me than coming in and talking to a medical professional at one of my med spas or taking them out to dinner for a celebration or something like that. You can have such a different impact on people's lives in a good or bad way, depending on how you want to be, when you're dealing with things that are where a college degree isn't required.
Yeah.
And franchising has a lot of opportunities to employ people like that.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.